So in network security, we also need to understand the wireless or Wi-Fi security, as nowadays every organization environment have a concept of bring your own device, or they are using mobile devices which will connect to the corporate network via Wi-Fi only. So as the Wi-Fi signals are traveling in open space, so it is very difficult to protect the same. That's why we can encrypt these signals. So these type of communication we can encrypt, and CISSP exam wants us to know the three standard for the same: WPA2, WPA and WEP. Let's have a look on these standards. First one is WPA2. It is a short for Wi-Fi protected access 2. So WPA2 is the security method added to WPA for wireless networks that provide stronger data protection and network access control. So it provides enterprise and consumer Wi-Fi users with a high level of assurance that only authorized users can access their network, wireless networks. So it is based on IEEE 802.11i, the standard for wireless protection. WPA2 provides AES encryption, and also it provides 802.1x based authentication, that is a port level security control standard. So two versions of WPA2 are there. One is WPA2 and WPA2 Enterprise. In WPA2 Enterprise, we can connect a centralized radius server for centralized authentication and authorization, as well as for accounting purpose. So the next protocol is WPA, which is a short form of Wi-Fi protected access. It uses TKIP with RC4 to improve the security over WEP. Also, it adds the function of key regeneration after every 10,000 packets. Also, there is the option of IV and key mixing. IV is initialization vector. It limits the total number of users per SSID to 30. So the next protocol is WEP, or Wired Equivalent Privacy. WEP uses RC4, CRC32 for confidentiality and integrity. It means RC4 for confidentiality and CRC32 for integrity, with a 24-bit of initialization vector. As it was already cracked in the year 2001, so it is not recommended to use WEP in current environments. So some more recommendation for Wi-Fi security. We should use WPA2 Enterprise for Wi-Fi with a centralized radius server for authentication purpose. Second, we can isolate the guest access using captive portal from the internal network via the VLAN and using a firewall. The third option is we should disable the WPS option in the Wi-Fi. And the fourth is to use a NAC, network access control, or role-based access for Wi-Fi users. Now let's understand about a captive portal. Whenever we try to access free or open Wi-Fi internet, like in any cafe or airport, then we will get a web page where we need to enter some information like mobile number or any other authentication code. So we call this portal as a captive portal. These portal, they segregate the guest account from rest of the network. Also, these captive portal present the user with terms of services or conditions which they must agree before accessing that particular Wi-Fi. So these captive portal can be enhanced further by offering self-registration, sponsor confirmation, billing, and sometimes advertisement also you can see in them. So, but still these open networks are very prone to sniffing. So always use a VPN whenever you are going to use any particular open Wi-Fi. Now let's discuss about some defenses or good practices for Wi-Fi communication. First is spectrum analysis. In spectrum analysis, we need to perform a background scanning for interfering and rogue devices. Second technique is a de-authentication. We can use a wireless IPS or WIPS, which impersonates rogue access point and repeatedly de-authenticates the user which are connecting to that particular rogue access point. And the third is using a VPN whenever we are going to use any open network. Now let's discuss about email network security. So normally we use SMTP, but we can use TLS over SMTP because SMTP is in plain text, and when we use TLS with SMTP, then we encapsulate the whole SMTP traffic between server transmission to prevent any eavesdroppers, and also it will help us to prevent any man-in-the-middle attack. But it does not protect any kind of security if the particular server is compromised, right? So it can be used. TLS over SMTP can be configured in two ways. One is a mandatory and other one is a opportunistic. So in case of a mandatory, the TLS connection is required in both the servers, okay, or else the connection between those two servers will not be established. The second is opportunistic, in that the TLS connection forms if both servers are capable of TLS, or else they will just communicate in plain text form. The next technique for email security is DKIM, which is domain keys identified mail. It is an email authentication method designed to detect forged sender addresses in emails, that is email spoofing. So it will help in stopping phishing mails as well as spam mails. The next technique for email security is SMIME, is secure multipurpose internet mail extension. It is widely accepted method, or we can say precisely it is a protocol for sending digitally signed and encrypted messages. So we can say SMIME allows you to encrypt emails and digitally sign them. So the next is in email security is MOS. MOS is a protocol that uses the MIME, multi-part signed and multi-part encrypted framework to apply digital signature and encryption services to MIME objects. So MIME object security services provide authentication, integrity, confidentiality and non-repudiation using MD5 and RSA asymmetric keys. So the next technique we can use for email security is PGP. It provides confidentiality and authentication by using IDEA for encryption and RSA for digital signature and key distribution. It uses a decentralized trust model. And the next technique for email security is SPF, that is Sender Policy Framework. It protects against spam and spoofing. It checks inbound messages whether they are originating from an authorized host of the sender domain or not. And the next technique we can use is RBL, which is real-time blacklist. So these blacklists can be maintained by sources such as trustsource.org or McAfee. So these they provide a list of spam and malware originating domains, and using the same we can block those domains, mails from those domains. So or we can say anti-spam gateways which we are using for email security are the modern solution for fighting spam. So these anti-spam gateways, they include filters that learn of good and bad mails for any organization and use methods such as RBL, anti-malware filtering and DLP to provide more email security. Web filtering. So that is a most important part in any organization to secure the network, because all the users are accessing internet. So these web filtering or content filtering, it will help us to protect the users from phishing websites, malware websites, illegal content, and even they can stop the non-business portals from accessing access of the same from any particular network. Also, it will help us to protect the leakage of data. We can use other techniques like quotas, bandwidth shaping, and TLS inspection in these. So we can say phishing websites can use reputation or content detection lookup to prevent users from navigating to phishing URLs. And to protect from malware, these secure web gateways, they can include reputation lookup for downloads or inbuilt malware scanning to prevent against drive-by download attacks. And to protect from the illegal content, they prevent the users from navigating and using malicious or illegal websites in the workplace such as adult or gaming portals. Also, they prevent the users from using social media or any other non-business app at the workplace to prevent productivity loss. Finally, to prevent the leakage, they can block the file sharing websites or apps to prevent data leakage. So even the internationalized domain name IDN homograph attack, which uses non-ASIC character that looks like the Latin character to spoof non-trusted URLs. So these type of attack can be blocked by using some filters on the browser and even on the proxies, which block the IDNs and non-ASIC URL or suspicious websites. So the next in network security is port security, which is very important, and there is a standard for the same, that is 802.1x. So the 802.1x is a network authentication protocol that opens ports for network access when an organization authenticates a user identity and authorizes them for access to the network. The user identity is determined based on their credential or certificate, which is confirmed by a radius server. So we can say the port security provides security against unauthorized network access by requiring authentication on switches before user is allowed on the network. So the standard 802.1x enforce wired authentication and authorization to the network as soon as a device connect to the network. Devices with valid credentials are only allowed to access to the network. So devices which are not able to provide the configuration for 802.1x, like the camera, printer, projector, via which we cannot do these kind of authentication, then in that case we can use a MAC bypass mode. So we can just collect the MAC addresses or the physical addresses of these devices and put them in the allowed list of MAC addresses on that particular network. Now this particular 802.1x or the port security standard, it is having some component. We call them as supplicant, authentication server and authenticator. So the supplicant is a 802.1x client and the authentication server is that authenticates that particular client, and authenticator is the device that need authentication like a switch or access point, which is an in-between device. Okay, so the network access control for the port security is further enhanced by network access control, which validate the health of the device before allowing it onto the network. So NAC enforces a concept of health profiles such as antivirus protection on the device, or whether it is well updated, the Windows is well updated, the OS in that particular device. So only the devices which match those particular profile are allowed to enter into that particular network. So NAC can also have a multiple profile such as guest or external vendor that have some protection like the antivirus and get an isolated VLAN on authentication. So user devices which do not match any health profile are quarantined. It means they will be put into a quarantine VLAN and are pushed for remediation. For example, they can download the update from the organization server. They can also reach the help desk. Also, they can reach the antivirus server to get the necessary update and scanning. So port security should be part of every organization strategy. While physical security can be rigorously implemented at the head office, that same is not possible everywhere, even in the remote location or any other small location. So if we implement port security, then it is an add-on benefit to have a overall security. Moving further, so the next is endpoint security. In endpoint security, endpoint means the laptop, desktops which the end users are using for their day-to-day work. So these endpoint, they can use a software, we call those as antivirus or anti-malware software, which use signature-based heuristic behavior, whitelisting or blacklisting or sandboxing, and even AI and machine learning techniques to protect those particular system. So signature-based is the best protection from known threats. So in this, the antivirus will maintain a database of all the malware signatures, but it requires constant updates to be effective in that particular environment. So and the next is heuristic and behavior based. It look for malicious behavior pattern. Once code execute in the memory, then it will check whether it is out of the behavior. So it will just create an alert for the same, or it will block that particular operation. The next technique the antivirus or the anti-malware software they can use is whitelisting and blacklisting. So at the organization level, they will create a list of the blacklisted software and they will create a list of the whitelisted software. The other technique they can use is sandboxing and AI. In sandboxing, they can emulate a research lab locally or on the cloud to prevent from the rise of any unknown or zero-day malware. So whenever there is any unknown or zero-day attack, that will be first opened in that particular sandbox environment. And analysis, both static and dynamic analysis will be done on that particular file. And if it was found to be malicious, then a signature of the same will be given to each and every endpoint connected to that particular environment. The last one is the AI or machine learning. So it is an algorithm generated from known malware to prevent variants of malware at the endpoint without dependency on signature or behavior pattern. So it is a predictive approach for prevention. So this is the best approach for protection. Also, at the endpoint, we can use the firewalls. We can use the HIPS or IDS. It means host-based intrusion prevention or intrusion detection system. We can also use device and port control to lock down ports such as USB, SD card to prevent manual lateral movement of malware and data exfiltration. Also, device control goes further and control access to Wi-Fi and Bluetooth networks also. We can also use encryption, web filtering and DLP. And encryption of the local disk is very helpful in case the particular endpoint is lost or stolen. Then the web filtering, a local web filtering component is essential to protect endpoint from malicious websites and downloads when they are off the corporate network. And finally, we can use a host-based DLP also that protect the data loss from the endpoint over web, email or removable media. The next topic in network security is DLP. So DLP is data loss prevention, which seeks to prevent the PII, PHI and IP from transversing out of the network unauthorized in an unauthorized way. So DLP employs controls such as label matching, pattern, regex matching for words and patterns that could constitute PII, PHI, IP or any other important information of that particular organization. So organization can use additional techniques such as embedding watermarks in any confidential internal documents, and when those particular documents will travel through the network, the DLP will just search for those particular watermarks or patterns. So DLP system can also enforce manager authentication or authorization and capture. So a confidential flagged document automatically is sent to the manager for approval before it is allowed. The content of the message are captured for forensic analysis. So we can say that if any particular employee send the data or any particular document from outside of the organization, then a flag or a alert will be created to that particular manager of that particular employee. So if the manager will allow, then only that particular document will be allowed outside from that particular network. So DLP can be of gateway type, endpoint type or mail and web. As the name itself says gateway, so it enforces data leakage prevention at the perimeter or gateway. So that is whenever anything is going out, it will be checked. So endpoint DLP are DLP which are installed at the local endpoint or local system. Then we have mail and web DLP. So in mail and web DLP, these DLPs are connected to the web filtering software, or we can say the email gateway to reduce the or to enforce the data loss prevention. So the next topic in network security is encryption. So as we know that every endpoint can be encrypted, right? So we can have multiple kind of encryption like disk encryption, file encryption, even the removable media encryption, and even the data which is we are uploading to the cloud. We can use or we can encrypt that also. With this, we are ending this domain 4. Thank you. Thank you, friends.